Here at the Internet Effigy channel, we're all about Mabinogi. Mabinogi lore, Mabinogi theories. I'm sure you get the idea. But there are other MMOs out there published by Nexon. MapleStory, Vindictus, others that I forgot the name of and probably won't look up again. I'm also aware that some of these games, like Vindictus and Mabinogi, share a universe, but what about MapleStory? I've known about MapleStory since before I even started playing Mabinogi. In fact, I'd been dragged kicking and screaming to a private server before by an ex-girlfriend who grew up with the game, but my experience in Maple World was about as brief as that relationship, and so after recently playing through the tutorial and just a tiny bit further, I want to talk about my experience. Before we get well and truly started, I'd like to take a minute to thank my patrons Emijenn, Sunflares, and Zonk. You all help me make these videos a reality, and thank you for sticking with me through it all so far. Sometime next month, new emotes should be available to members of the Discord and the subscribers over on Twitch, and it's all thanks to you. The very first thing I set out to do was create a character, selecting a class, customizing my character, if you can call what I was allowed to do customization. What I did notice is that Maplers are absolutely spoiled for choice when it comes to classes. Perhaps too much so, as I found myself a little overwhelmed. Explorer and Knight both seem to be categories of classes, Cannoneer, Dual Blade, oodles of named character classes. It was a lot to take in, but my hardened gamer intuition told me that Explorer was probably the beginner-friendly option, and so my character was born. I took some time sorting through the 3 or so options for clothing and hair before realizing that I was equally disinterested in all of them and stuck with this. The game opens with a bit of an exposition dump, and at this point I check OBS and notice 2 things. I can't hide my cursor, and the game pauses when I don't have the window focused. Not so much pauses, I've noticed, but the audio stops. So apologies if seeing the cursor bothers you as much as it does me. The cursor thing is kinda harmless, but the game pausing really bewildered me. It's just an odd feature for an MMO, and honestly it did cause occasional problems as I'd alt-tab back and forth to check Discord or something, and it would disrupt audio. Speaking of, I was really impressed that the game had voice acting. I had assumed that we were in for a text-only experience, but instead several characters are voiced in important scenes, and the quality of the voiceover is high. But let's talk story. My character is lazing under a maple tree, reading the story of the maple hero, and meets a girl. I'll let her introduce herself.
Excuse me. Hi. Yeah, my name's Sugar, and I lost my hairpin around here somewhere. If you're not too busy, could you help me find it? Well, it's really important to me.
After I find her hairpin, Efi and I are whisked away to the next screen where I begin to commit genocide on some cute-looking snails in exchange for a boat ticket. I immediately notice that I'm doing big damage, a few hundred to these snails, while they deal single points of damage to my gargantuan pool of health. This smells of power creep and a dread sets in, but we'll talk about why exactly in a moment. Snails, thoroughly and savagely wiped from existence, I continued to a small town and boarded a ship with Sugar, and introduced some other key characters, also voice acted so they can do their own introductions.
Yo, my name's Olive. Who are you guys?
Oh, hi, I'm Sugar.
I'm Tess, and I don't want to talk right now. Try not to bug me.
What's your name? What do you want to be?
I'm Rondo. I want to be a thief.
I have to say, the voice performances on display here are excellent. The actors are very much propping up these characters despite them being written in a way that would normally bug me. After introductions, a cutscene plays. It's animated and uses a chibi anime style, and I have to say that I'm impressed with the production value on display so far. I did notice that the game seems to be loading the video from YouTube though, and I'm not sure I was supposed to see that. Eventually, the ship arrives at Victoria Island, and I choose my job, electing to become a mage. I have a very good reason for this, but we'll come back to it later. With my fancy new wand in hand, I wander around for a while, avoiding the critical path the game had put before me. It is an RPG, after all, so surely there would be some quests I could take. I wandered around for quite some time, but walked away empty-handed. Back on the main path, Olive becomes wanted as she's accused of stealing an important gem. I speak to the guild leader of the bowmen, and set out to find her. She's supposedly being very elusive, but I kinda just find her, like, out in the open. She insists that she was framed, and tasks us with speaking to a man named Nineheart to learn about a figure called the Master of Disguise before Rondo drags her away. I do exactly as she asks, and then return to Athena, the guild leader. Athena listens to a report and decides to send Olive to clear her name by recovering the item, and we tag along with her. We go to the hideout of a group known as the Black Wings, and after some banter, which I will spare you, you're welcome, we break in. I did notice that the character we met was a selectable class, and instantly became curious if each class had a unique story. After checking into this, while I wasn't able to look at every class, I do think this might be the case. Rondo and I sneak into the base, and I need to stop here and say that I really wish the game would trust me to just do some things outside of cutscenes. So far, MapleStory has felt more like an interactive movie than a game, which is unfortunate because it looks like this. It isn't impressive outside of the cutscenes, and while it's cute, it's not something that I would just sit around and watch. Anyway, Rondo reveals that he's like a catboy or something. It's emphasized like it's really exciting or like an important character moment, but I haven't spent any time with the dude and I do not care. We go into the room where the gem is being kept, only to find it conveniently left out in the open, alongside a letter from Barack.
Why aren't you here yet? And I completed the mission, and here's the seal stone whenever you get around to picking it up.
Rondo and I return to the rest of the Explorer crew, and together we return the stone to Athena. She thanks us, Olive is exonerated, and Ify tells me that we haven't trained in a while. I have to agree, other than voluntarily grinding a couple times, I have not trained at all. The game is just throwing levels at me. Excited to finally get some gameplay, I follow the quest prompt and see a scene where Olive wants to spend some alone time with us, which is actually kind of welcome. She tells us that she has a special training spot picked out for us and takes me to an area with a few mushrooms. Excited to finally be allowed to play the game, I kill a mushroom and am promptly whisked out of the area and back into dialogue. At this point, my patience has finally become entirely strained, so I set off to explore. I think it's pretty interesting how the world is laid out, and I have a little fun getting lost and exploring the market, but the world is sort of absent of things for me to do. Monsters in the overworld seem pretty harmless and die in a single hit, and eventually I fold and return to the story. Ify and I speak to Athena about the seal stone, and she sends us off to check on the Temple of Time. We arrive to find out the door's open, despite Athena saying that the door of the present, has never been opened. We enter the door and find the Black Mage sealed away, and he talks to us with ominous reverb. She's alarmed by our report and accompanies us back to the temple. She seems confused, and after some back and forth, it's revealed that I'm the only one who sees the doors as standing open while they lie closed for everyone else. Athena gives us the recovered seal stone and sends us in to replace the cracked one, but we bungle it pretty badly and set the Black Mage free. We tell Athena, and she takes responsibility for the seal breaking and has us return to the guild while she thinks of our next move. Before she can get in touch with us, we get an urgent message from Olive. There's a fire on Maple Island. We rush to the scene and find the island ablaze, and admit to our party that we had accidentally freed the Black Mage. They bicker, because they never don't do that, and I'm about to leave as the news arrives that Sugar is in danger. We rush back to the Maple Tree of Fate or whatever, and find it wreathed in black flame. Sugar is badly wounded, and we try to get her to flee before she reveals to us that she is tied to the tree and will die if it burns to the roots. After some internal monologuing, Ify and I decide to stand up against the mage, and then he dies, in like 2 hits, confirming my fear that the power creep is going to ruin any experience or accomplishment I would feel at any point during this tutorial. Ify decides to use the seal stone to magic the island to not be on fire, and we're whisked away to like space or something, I don't know. There, we find out that Sugar was actually a goddess of that specific maple tree. That doesn't seem like a divine domain. Like, she's basically a dryad, but whatever. She thanks us for saving the world and sends us back to the party. Our party members all act like we've spent tons and tons of time together and have become a found family, and we're treated to some closing narration. And that's it. The game is over. I beat MapleStory in like 2 to 3 hours. Roll credits. We're done. Oh wait, not really. I played a little bit further. I graduated my class in the Cleric and attempted the game's first dungeon. I had made this decision all the way back when I chose Mage, hoping that choosing a support class would allow the game to challenge me just a little bit further. I did not know, at the time, that Cleric was going to give me the ability to both one-hit KO monsters and restore my mana and give me a healing ability, however, and my dreams were completely and totally crushed. I never felt in any danger whatsoever. Damage was a nuisance, not a threat. Something that would serve more to slightly trigger my OCD when my health bar wasn't full than as any dynamic part of gameplay. And this is where I stopped. I'm sure MapleStory is fun, it has to be, to have kept a following for so many years. But to me, it just feels like a game that doesn't know how to share that with new players, leaving the fun, the real game, several hours in. I can't say I hated my time in Maple World. It surprised me, charmed me a little, even. And maybe I'll go back to it one day, on another personal break or something, and maybe I can see what it has to offer, but this time it had nothing for me. If you're a Mapler, I'd like to hear your thoughts. What keeps you in Maple World? Did I approach the game wrong? Let me know. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I'm sorry it took so long. This was very hard for me to get out. I just didn't have the interest to work on it. It's been clogging my backlog for like a month now, at least. Generation 10 is the next video on the way. That shouldn't take quite so long if everything goes to plan. Either way, I hope you had a great holiday season, had a safe New Year's. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Internet effigy with the mobby lore. Internet effigy, videos galore. He's the tech wear fox dude, the VTuber on the scene.